good to meet you and have a chance to sit down and talk with you.
Yes, you too.
You have a beautiful place here, and I know there are a lot of things that we'd like to explore, but could you share with us a bit of your past about what was the work like that you did before you got here, and what was it that brought you to creating your own sanctuary?
I was attending the University of Wisconsin getting my undergraduate degree, and I had aspirations of going to veterinary school. And since it's so highly competitive, the culture is to get a job at an animal lab, to get the experience. And there are plenty of animal labs at the UW, so I actually consider myself lucky to get a job at the Harlow Primate Lab. After working there 3 years and then graduating, I was well liked and promoted at the lab, I have to say. And so instead of going to veterinary school, I became full-time there as a research specialist for 2 years. And while I saw that so many things needed improving in the laboratory environment and that other labs were doing more innovative things, why wasn't our lab? Other labs were retiring monkeys, why wasn't our lab?
Sure.
So then I decided to go to night school, to business school, to get the MBA, just so that I could form a nonprofit that was dedicated to retiring monkeys. And what led to my perspective change in the laboratory was a research veterinarian I looked up to at the time. I told her about the project in Primates Inc. and how I formed it in my last year there. And I had some researchers on board with me. And because of the divisive nature of the animal rights term, she said it's too animal rightsy for her taste.
No.
So I don't want to become this desensitized and a veterinarian like this. And that I knew that other labs were doing it, so how dare she or anyone else label retirement as this negative term when other labs are actively doing that.
Yeah.
And I wrote a paper called Overcoming the Barriers to Retiring Old and New World Monkeys from Research Facilities. And it basically discussed the top barriers that existed. And then I asked them on ways to overcome them. We took all the positive aspects from sanctuaries, and then we formulated our mission on how to help as many laboratories as we could. I always wanted to raise funds ahead of time. So as we raised funds, then we received enough funding from these wonderful donors. They helped ensure we bought property, but then we started really looking, and we approached townships for their approval, and all it took was one person who didn't want this in their backyard.
Right.
So I had to try to convince people about the need of primate retirement. And at every benefit I would say, local labs don't retire, but out-of-state labs do. And so let's show the local labs our success stories and how it can actually improve. Every researcher who's retired a monkey from a lab said it's improved their morale.
Yeah.
And it would improve employee retentions. A concerned neighbor was telling local people that the monkeys were from labs, so they would have disease and that there was a risk to the community.
Yeah.
And naturally that caused the township director he said, Amy, could you come down to a meeting? Actually, because of the negative neighbor mentioning those things, it caused about 60 people to show up to this township meeting and the whole community to talk about it. But I had a captive audience for 2 hours, and they asked questions, and I was able to tell them, well, sadly, a lot of primate studies are terminal with terminal illnesses, but there are control monkeys. There are monkeys who get better, like the monkeys that I worked on in my laboratory.
So what do you think about the future of your sanctuary, and maybe if you had an opinion about just broadly sanctuaries for primates? What are your thoughts about what's going to go on in the future?
Well, after we're set up here, what I've been hopeful for is that local labs personnel are coming out of the woodwork wanting to volunteer here.
Okay.
And so it's creating a real conversation. And then by just by having the monkeys here and showing the success stories. And so my hope is that more researchers, as I can help them facilitate their retirement program by connecting them with researchers who do retire actively, then by connecting them and leaving organizations outside of the picture, out of it, they can communicate, share protocols, set precedent, and then more likely have a chance. And that's how I feel my strength is. I can relate to these researchers in the labs who grow close to the monkeys.